and I have no doubt it is going to be a wild ride. On Sunday, a game drawing a ton of attention, Cowboys and 49ers. The last time these two met in the playoffs was the 1995 NFC Championship game, and Jerry Jones has made it clear the only successful outcome for this season is their first Super Bowl win since that same year. Meanwhile, also in the NFC, Matthew Stafford looking to lead his team to the promised land as he and the Rams prepare to take on the Cardinals in the wild card. In his 13-year career, Stafford has never won a playoff game. So how much pressure are he and Dak feeling right now?
I step on the field, I'm proving myself. You know, whether it's a preseason game, a regular season game, practice, a playoff game, I want to go out there and play well. You know, this is just another opportunity to do that. This is a team game. There's no question. But at the same time, do I know that when the quarterback plays good, you got a better chance to win the game? Absolutely.
Time and time again, we don't care what people believe about us outside of these walls, whether they think it's good or not. We're excited for the matchup. Obviously, it's a playoff opponent. You've got to respect them and what they've done. Been a successful team the past few years. Understand they were just as hurt as we were last year. But coming in this game, as we expect hard 4 quarters, and it's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be a war, and we're exactly up for that.
All right. Hey, Nick, who do you think has more at stake this weekend? Is it Dak Prescott or Matthew Stafford?
I think it's obviously Matthew Stafford because he was brought over here for this reason. This is why he is here, so they can take them to this next step to win a Super Bowl, frankly, not just get out of this round. It was kind of sold to all of us, and honestly, I believed it just like a lot of us believe that Matthew Stafford was a great upgrade, and I've liked what the Rams have been doing as far as trading away all of their picks in order to make this team as talented as they possibly can, and they're doing it for a reason. They're doing it to win the Super Bowl this year. The situation in Dallas is a lot different. Matt Stafford has no playoff wins. That's not true. Dak Prescott has 2 playoff wins in Dallas. It's the same thing as not true for Dak. He has 2 playoff wins, and this team, the Cowboys team, is very young in some important positions, and they have a bright future, and they have draft picks in the upcoming drafts. Like, I think that the pressure on Dak is high, as pressure on all quarterbacks is high, but it's nothing like Matt Stafford, who is now 33 and kind of in the last act of his career, trying to reshape the way that we think about him by being a high-level playoff performer on a good team. Like, the narrative of Stafford's entire career, it's probably going to be written in this year's playoffs or next year's playoffs, but he doesn't have much time left for us to be convinced that he was deserving of that #1 overall pick that he got back in the day, and get past this first round is the first step to do it. So this weekend, if they lose in this first round and they get like not nearly as far as Jared Goff was able to take them, it's going to be really, really hard on Stafford in a way that it won't be on Dak. In the final reason, the Cowboys are playing the 49ers, kind of the team that everyone expects to, if there is going to be an upset, everyone's looking at the 49ers as the team that no one wants to play.
Well, Nick, you said one thing that really stood out to me. You said that Matthew Stafford this year or next is trying to reshape or redefine the way that we think about him. And I believe that is true. I think that the difference is that Dak Prescott is trying to reshape the way that we think about the Dallas Cowboys and their organization. That's a big difference when it comes to who has more pressure or what is at stake. One person is worried about himself and his legacy. The other guy, in addition to his legacy, he also has to rebuild a team that hasn't won a Super Bowl since 1995, a team that is the most valuable sports franchise in all of sports, worth upwards of $6 billion or right around $6 billion. That's from a macro level, from a team level, from a Dallas Cowboys, the most valuable team. He has that pressure. Then there's individual pressure. I get it. He has more playoff wins than Matthew Stafford. I understand that. But he also has Dak Prescott has a bigger contract, more guaranteed money, $126 million guaranteed. And he got that more recently. You need to use that money and show us why you were worth that money. So when I think about who has more at stake, it's not talking about, winning in the wild card round and maybe winning this game. You could argue that both teams will win their wild card rounds. But I'm thinking, who has more at stake when it comes to a Super Bowl, when it comes to pressure, when it comes to an organization? Don't get it wrong. You said it right. Both have a lot at stake, and Matthew Stafford does have a lot at stake. When I look at both of these teams, not just the players, the teams, I look at the Dallas Cowboys and the star and the brand and the fans and everybody that talks about them. It'd be hard-pressed to say that Dak Prescott losing in the playoffs isn't going to taint not only his reputation, but that of his team.
But the Rams gave up so much to acquire Matthew Stafford.
Exactly.
I mean, they pretty much banked their entire season on, hey, if we bring you in, we're a shoo-in to win the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
Yes.
I got hung up
Charlie,
on that point
Charlie,
too, because you talked about the cost that each team has for each player. Dak Prescott's cost is significant. How much they're paying him is a lot, but they're paying Stafford to play, and they've also there's a cost of all the opportunity that they've given up by trading away draft picks. That pressure is there. And I do think that if we come here on Monday morning and both of these teams lose, I think it's more likely that we have a conversation about how Matt Stafford let down his team. And if the Cowboys lose, it's probably going to be more about McCarthy. The pressure is spread in Dallas in a way that it's not in LA. Right now, all the pressure is on Matt Stafford, particularly because the way he's been turning the ball over in the last several weeks. So if he throws an interception and they lose, we're talking about him. If Dak throws some interceptions and they lose, we're talking probably about McCarthy. We're talking about a lot of things, but we can always fall back on the fact that Dak Prescott has 2 playoff wins. He led a game-winning drive in the game against Seattle. In his rookie year against Aaron Rodgers, he had 17 points in the fourth quarter. And if it wasn't for Aaron Rodgers being a magician, he would have won that game also. So I feel like this single game is not a referendum on Dak Prescott in the way that it will be for Matt Stafford.
Okay, so Dominique, we're focusing in on the quarterbacks right now. You know, that's who a lot of people point the finger at when something goes right or wrong. But let's look at the coaches. Who do you think has more pressure on them in terms of coaches, McCarthy or McVay?
Yeah, I still think it goes to McCarthy. McVay, I understand the decision that he's made and the pressure that's on him to make this leap. But I think the pressure goes to McCarthy because the story of the season from that team, outside of like Dak's health and his ups and downs, the story of the season is how Mike McCarthy has managed the clock, managed his timeouts, made in-game decisions. All that stuff feels like that is where the blame is going to go if things go wrong for the Cowboys. It's going to fall on McCarthy because right now the coordinators are darlings. Like both of the coordinators, from Moore to Quinn, they're going to get interviews for head coaching jobs. No one is concerned about their performance. All of the pressure kind of falls on Mike McCarthy, a guy who took some time away from the game and said he came back with a new analytical mind and then goes into these games and coaches conservatively.
Yeah, Mike McCarthy definitely has more pressure, but it just goes back to the point that that star on that helmet brings pressure with it. And I do want to point something out, though. Just because the media talks about something after a game doesn't mean that's actually the most important thing or the thing that happened. For example, let's say that Matthew Stafford plays poorly, throws interceptions, but the Rams still win. It'll be, hey, they won and all these things, right? It won't be about he played bad or whatever. The media might talk about it, but the Rams will still win. And like Matthew Stafford said at the beginning of his interview, he said, this is a team game. And yes, I understand I got that ball in my hand every single play, but it's a team game. And so for me, to the coaching point, yes, McCarthy has more pressure because the Cowboys ain't won in a minute. Jerry Jones is always in the media. The Cowboys, you talk about this. Let's make this point. The LA Rams have invested everything. They sold the farm this year, even years past, been trying to win now to get all these superstars. Dallas has been doing that year in and year out for like 25 years. They've been getting superstars. Back to Michael Irvin, superstar. Troy Aikman, superstar. Deion Sanders, superstar. Emmitt Smith, superstar. The Cowboys have consistently had superstars. Then all of a sudden, the superstars didn't perform. Or they didn't have superstars, or something happened where the Cowboys couldn't win. No. Right? I grew up in Dallas, so I saw this thing firsthand, watching the Cowboys consistently lose. And so when you have all the stars, CeeDee Lamb, you have the stars on defense, Micah Parsons, you have Randy Gregory, you have DeMarcus Lawrence, you have Trayvon Diggs, you have guys who are supposed to be playmaking and winning right now, and then all of a sudden, whether because of your quarterback or because of not whatever reason or your coach, they don't win. I think that's an issue, and I think it's a bigger deal in Dallas than it is in Los Angeles.
Yeah, but the difference
Sam,
is that Dallas has...
To your point, Dallas has won 7 of their 11 playoff openers since the 1995 season when they won the Super Bowl. So they definitely, it doesn't matter whether they have the pieces, they seem to just flounder in the playoffs.
But, I mean, the difference is that they have those players through the draft. They've shown an ability to draft well, which means that they probably will continue to have a bright future because in recent drafts, they've added some really talented players to their team. That gives them a longer kind of length of their window, which means that there's not as much pressure on them going forward because guys like Micah Parsons, guys like Trayvon Diggs, guys like CeeDee Lamb are playing at superstar level at rookie contracts. That's not what the Rams have. The Rams have guys who are either playing at superstar level or playing beneath superstar level at a cost that is at superstar cost. Like, that's what you have, frankly, with what they paid for in draft capital to get Von Miller, what they paid for in draft capital to get Matthew Stafford. Ramsey, on the other hand, he's playing at a superstar level. The only kind of really big names that they've brought in through the draft was Kupp and Donald. Those guys are big names. I mean, even Whitworth playing at the at the tackle position. Like, there's a very big difference, and that makes you concerned about them going forward, because they have not shown the ability to draft well. And even if they do, they don't got no picks to draft with going forward. So that's why, if it doesn't work out for Dallas this year, I mean, they're going to be decent for years to come, considering that they've brought in some young, talented guys that don't have any option but to stay there and play for the next couple of seasons.
Yeah. Okay, well,
the Cowboys have been decent for a long time, and I think people want more than decent. There was a span for about 10 years. They were 8-8 for that whole span under Jason Garrett. So I think that's the difference.
Okay, well, you just mentioned young and talented players, but let's look at some young and talented players over in the AFC, because it is the Bengals hosting the Raiders, who barely squeezed their way into the playoffs in what has been an extremely up-and-down season on and off the field. As for the Bengals, they have been playing their best football of the year lately, led by a young and confident Joe Burrow. But Joe Cool says this hot streak wouldn't be possible without his trifecta of receiver weapons. Listen.
They're athletic freak shows. I mean, T is big, strong, fast. Jamar never gets tackled, and TB might not be an athletic freak show, but he's a really, really good receiver that gets open when he needs to and understands coverages and being able to get open over the middle. But I think our trio of guys, I'll take every single one of them over anybody in the league.
I love the dynamic on this team. Hey, Sacha, what is Burrow and the Bengals ceiling in the playoffs, would you say?
I think it's a Super Bowl. I really do. And I didn't say that before, but then after the Super Bowl, getting to the Super Bowl, winning the AFC, beating teams like the Chiefs, which they did just 2 weeks ago in outstanding fashion. The teams like the Chiefs, which they beat 34-31, and Joe Burrow went crazy, 30 of 39, 466 yards. Jamar Chase went crazy, 266 receiving yards. I didn't believe in the Bengals at first. I ain't gonna lie. I was like everybody else, like, man, they've been up. Man, they've been down. Will they do it? Can they do it? Then they won the division. And then they started balling. And then T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow started balling, been balling. Then the defense has been stepping up. And so for me, first I was like, yeah, they'll probably flounder. Then I saw Joe Burrow with that cigar in his mouth in the locker room talking about, I did this, right? Then I saw Jamar Chase touch the rock and magically appear in the end zone time and time again, 3 different times when he played the Chiefs. I'm like, bro, what is going on? If the Chiefs are the standard, if the Chiefs are the teams you got to get through, and the Bengals did it in outstanding fashion, I'm like, okay, well, cool. Maybe you can win the AFC and get to the Super Bowl. Now we're talking about ceilings. Do I think they will? No, I think that other teams are probably more suited to do it. But we're talking about ceilings, talking about opportunity, talking about upside, talking about future. Joe Burrow is that dude, and Joe Burrow can do that thing.
Well, I think if you're talking distant future, you're probably right. Or, I mean, not necessarily distant future, but not this season is my point. So when I saw this question, my immediate reaction was like I was like infected by the swag of Joe Cool. And I was like, man, if he plays like that, they can go anywhere. If those receivers play like that, there's nobody who can stop them. And then I sat down and I looked at the roster. And I was like, yeah, the defense is playing better. It's pretty good. Those receivers outstanding. That running back is something special. But I can't go into another NFL playoffs and underappreciate the importance of offensive line play. Like, their offensive line is bad. Like, it's not good. And when they protect
They've given up more sacks than any other team in the playoffs, Neek.
Right. Yeah, and pressure too, because I do think that when they're able to protect Joe Burrow and he's able to get the ball to those receivers, I think that, yes, they could outscore anybody with the way that defense is playing. But the issue for me is that you cannot expect them to be able to do that for 3 rounds in a row. Like, I don't see that working out. That magic is not going to keep up. It's not attractive. It's not fun to talk about offensive line play. And I'm like you, I want to bank on the cigar-smoking Burrow and those outstanding magicians that they have at receiver. But I know one thing. If them big guys up front can't keep them boys off you, it's going to be a problem. And they are in the playoffs. They're going to have to play against teams that have good pass rushes that can get after them with 4, which allows them to do more creative things in the secondary to account for those receivers that he has and he loves.
Nick, I hear where you're coming from totally. And I think we were on the same boat. And then somehow maybe you got on the life raft and then somebody got, like we were on the same boat. And then something happened. You got on the life raft. I'm still on the boat, bro. I'm on the Bengals and Burrow boat.
I took the common sense helicopter off of the boat is what I did. I didn't get on no life raft. No, you are on this luxury.
He snuck on with the women and the children.
Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why I differ in what you said. Let me tell you why I differ, because I get it. The most sacked quarterback in the playoffs. He had 50 sacks. He was sacked over 50 times this year. I was watching that Patriots game. I'm like, man, he got sacked again and again and again. And man, they were down big in the first half. But then all of a sudden, the magic happened. Like, that's what happened. The magic happened. And I didn't want to believe it, despite the sacks. I'm listening to the broadcast. They're like, man, he's sacked again. That's 50. And then all of a sudden, he finds a way to win the game. And so for me, a guy who did not believe, I'm being real, Nick, because at first I was like, Raiders are going to win this game, man. Raiders, they're hot. They found a way. They're playing with house money. Then I was like, man, who's going to stop Jamar Chase? Like, straight up, I feel like he's like the Michael Jordan of the NFL. Like, when he can't be stopped. Like, at certain times, he cannot be stopped. That's a bold statement. I get it. But, like, he had 266 yards. Who's going to stop him? Who's going to stop Tyler Boyd? Who's going to stop Joe Mixon? And you talk about players, right? Offensive line, I get it. Might be a weak point. But defensively, Von Bell can play. Eli Apple has made some huge plays. Sam Hubbard can play. They're playmakers on the defensive side of the ball as well. And so for me, I'm on the boat. You were on the boat. You hopped off whether through a life raft or a helicopter. Find a way to get back on the boat.
I can't get on this fantasy cruise liner because, like you said, it's magic. You know what magic is? It's an illusion. It's smoke and mirrors. It ain't real. I hate to burst your bubble, but you know what's real? And as much as I hate to do this because I get on my man Jeff Saturday all the time about how he only talks about the offensive line and how much he cares, that is real. That is down and dirty, and it is real football. And no matter how complicated the game gets, how fast or athletic the receivers get, if you can't protect your quarterback, you're going to be in trouble. And you're right. There may not be any single person in this league that can stop Jamar Chase. But if you can get pressure with 4, you can put 2 on him. You can put 2 on Boyd. You can put 2 on Mixon. You can put 2 on everybody in order to.
You're running out of numbers now.
You got enough. No, you got enough people. If you only have to put 4 down to rush the passer, that leaves you with 7 other guys to put elsewhere. I think we're good. We can double everybody as long as we can get pressure with 4.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's going to depend a lot on how the Raiders play as well.
17 defenders.
When these two teams played earlier this season, Joe Burrow actually had a season-low 148 passing yards, and he was 0 for 4 on passes that were 15 yards or more, which actually is something that he's excelled at this season. That's the only game this whole season he didn't complete a pass of that length. So
you with these facts, Charlie.
It's going to be interesting to see. I've been brushing up, okay? Okay, it's a big weekend coming up. But let's talk about what team in the wild card round does have the best chance to win the Super Bowl. And obviously, the Bengals. Acho, you said are one of the potentials to get there, but who do you think has the best chance?
Well, there's a difference between getting there and winning it. And I think when it comes to winning a Super Bowl, which is what we're talking about, I think the wild card team that has the best chance to win is the Kansas City Chiefs. Why? They got a Super Bowl pedigree. They got Super Bowl experience. For 7 weeks of the last 8 weeks of the year, they had a Super Bowl defense. They didn't lose. They had a hiccup. We get it. We understand that. But when it comes to finding that mojo and moxie, Tyrann Mathieu, he knows what it's like to win a Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes knows what it's like to win a Super Bowl. Talking about offensive line play, that offensive line has been rebuilt. Granted, Creed Humphrey running people over. They know what it's like to win a Super Bowl. And so for me, the team, not just to get there, right? Because getting there is one thing. Winning it is another. The wild card team, not talking about Green Bay or Tennessee. wild card team that has the best chance to win, I think it's hard to argue that it's the Kansas City Chiefs. You could say Tampa Bay, maybe if you wanted to. Then you realize that AB's not there. You realize Chris Godwin's not there. You realize all the injuries. You could say that, but the fact is Kansas City is the only team that is the adequate answer for this question.
And I think the AFC is also a bit of an easier path relative to the NFC. I think that those teams might be tougher. So I'm glad that we are in agreement on this one, because the team that's playing in the wild card round that has the best chance is certainly the Patrick Mahomes-led Chiefs. But, I mean, they're a division winner, so they aren't like a wild card team necessarily. They're just playing in the wild card round. I think it's easy to pick a division winner that has a chance to win the Super Bowl. I think it gets a lot more difficult if you're trying to figure out one of these actual wild card teams that are going to go and potentially get to and win the Super Bowl. Like, then you're looking at the Eagles or the 49ers. I think is probably the team that I would have the most faith in, because it comes down to a couple of things, I think.
You think the 49ers have the best chance to get to the Super Bowl?
I think the Chiefs have the best chance to get to the Super Bowl.
But you said, but in the NFC you're talking about.
Right.
On that side of
Yeah, on that side, I think I would go with, of the wild card team or the teams playing the wild card round, I would say the Cowboys. But if we're talking about teams that did not win their division, I just saw that Acho and I agreed, and I ain't feel like yelling at a man who agreed with me, so I'm trying to find a way to yell at him.
Not yet.
Because I do think that it gets a little bit more interesting. I think probably the 49ers are the team that did not win their division that has the best chance to make a run to the Super Bowl because of their unique style of play, and because, let's get back to it, they can get pressure with 4. That matters in the modern NFL. Elite quarterback play and pressure with 4 on defense helps in the modern NFL in the playoffs. So I like the 49ers there.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, the Chiefs definitely know what they're doing in the postseason. They've only lost one postseason game. That would be last year with Mahomes as their starter. But now let's move on, because there was some news yesterday as the fact that now there are 8 NFL head coaching vacancies, with the Texans' David Culley being the latest. He was let go after just one season with the Texans, despite leading them to the same record they had the season prior with Deshaun Watson on the field. So the Texans general manager, Nick Caserio, released a statement in part saying, quote, "While a change after one season is unusual, we had philosophical differences over the long-term direction and vision for our program. Moving forward, we appreciate Coach Culley for helping us navigate through a difficult season, but it is my responsibility to make decisions that I feel are best for our organization." Okay, so it is worth noting that with the firing of Brian Flores earlier this week and now Culley yesterday, this leaves only one African-American head coach in the NFL, being Mike Tomlin. So, Nick, how does firing David Culley make the Texans look?
Yeah, I mean, I think the start is not a great look, but I think it depends on what they do next. And I try to be as honest and fair as I can be on these issues. So I'd be lying if I say that race does not play some factor in many of the decisions that are made in NFL. I believe that to be the case. But the Culley situation, I think, is slightly different than the Flores situation, because I think David Culley took a job last year that, frankly, my guess is no one really wanted. It was kind of a bad job. Deshaun Watson wanted out. There's the mire of his sexual assault accusations over the organization. It seemed like a job that no one really wanted. And they got David Culley, who at the time was 66 years old, or now is 66 years old, had never been a coordinator, and it appeared like he was not on head coach track. They took somebody in that situation who they wanted that could be respectable and mind the store until they found their next coach, until they found another coach. David Culley probably outperformed their expectations, but I don't think that it changed the long-term plan. David Culley at 66 years old was never going to be the long-term plan for them. And why I think it matters what they do next is because, frankly, Flores was fired, who is a Patriots guy, who is Nick Caserio is from the Patriots. And it seems to me like that is the perfect sort of upgrade that's available. If they make that upgrade, that to me makes sense. Is they got David Culley, they asked David Culley to hold things down, to be a respectable face, make this team overachieve for one season. We'll pay you $22 million, and then when we find our guy, we'll have to let you go. Like, that to me feels like a reasonable decision to make, as long as the next decision they make is for an obvious upgrade at coach, which I think Brian Flores is, and also a cultural fit, which I think Brian Flores is, given his history at New England, along with Nick Caserio's history at New England.
Brian Flores, he's going to be in high demand, I think. So I think a lot of teams are going to be after him.
Yeah, I think this move makes the Texans look bad. I really do. And I found it, for a couple reasons. Let's just address the reasons first. Number one, he outperformed what was expected of him, right? 4 wins at a team that didn't have J.J. Watt, didn't have DeAndre Hopkins, didn't have really a lot of superstar players playing with your third-string quarterback, a rookie who you drafted in the 3rd round. And he outperformed. He did well. And then at the beginning, Caserio of the season, Caserio talked about, hey, we're about culture and building a winning culture. It's not necessarily going to be about the results. And that's what he said before the season began. He said, this is actually not going to be about the results per se. It's going to be about building that culture. And David Culley did that. So to get fired at this point proves to me that you never intended to keep him in the first place. That's number one. Number two, I would say, just to Neek's point about, well, it depends what they do next. I'm not really as concerned with what they do next. I think the Texans have proven that they're an organization that doesn't do things the right way. Right, you hire a search firm last year to go find a new GM, and you pay him $500,000, $500,000 for this outside search firm. Then all of a sudden, Cal McNair says, you know what? Caserio's available. I like him. Bump the search firm. I'm going to go take the guy that I want. For me, that's bad business. You're talking about when Bill O'Brien was there, trading away all these guys, all your superstar players. For me, that's bad business. And then this move right here, saying there are philosophical differences, and that's the reason why you're going a different direction. That's bad business. Now to address Neek's point, which I agree with, right? We can't just look by and say, well, this has nothing to do with race. I think race does play somewhat of an issue in this, and it's hard to argue against it. There's only one black coach in the NFL at this point in time. And yes, there's a lot of chatter of, man, Brian Flores, he's going to get interviews, and man, Eric Bieniemy is going to get interviews, and man, all these black coaches, they are going to be great candidates. They're going to look up in 3 months from now and see 2, maybe 3 black coaches in the NFL consistently over and over again. And so for me, it's great talk, right? It's all talk and chatter and sounds good, but I want to see results. We talk about the NFL being a results-oriented business, right? When it comes to who are your coaches, that is a real thing. But my issue is when you go out and say, and I actually wrote it down, I'm gonna see if I can find it. When you go out and say that it's not as, this is quote verbatim, it's not as much of an outcome-oriented business. This is Nick Caserio before the season. It's not as much of an outcome-oriented business as a process-oriented business. And that's what we're trying to do and build. Right. That's what he said. So if we're talking about building processes and changing culture. No, we're on the same page. We're on the same page. When we're talking about building processes and changing culture, you have to, it takes time, right? Zach Taylor, when he first got to the Bengals, was 4-12, right? Imagine if he would have been fired after his first year. Right, but all of a sudden they're in the playoffs, and so for me,
I understand.
Bad look.
I understand that. But Zach Taylor and I'm not gonna find myself defending Zach Taylor or find myself defending the Houston Texans organization. But I don't think that the decision that they made yesterday shows that they are not that they don't have a process. I think the idea that process over results matters. I think that matters. If their process was, we are going to bring in David Culley to be a stopgap until we find our coach of the future, then this is consistent with the process which is why I said it matters what they do next. If they bring in a significantly younger coach who obviously is an upgrade, then to me it seems like what they did made sense. They had a reasonably successful year considering the expectations. They did not embarrass themselves any further, and you went down a list of many embarrassing things that they have done. They did not embarrass themselves any further. They positioned themselves to make an upgrade at coach. If they are able to do that, then this seems like it is consistent with them having some sort of process. I'm certainly not caping for Nick Caserio. I was very critical of that hire because of his lack of experience and kind of coming from an unorthodox direction. I agree with all of that, and I think it is fair to be critical of them for moving on from David Culley, even though he overachieved. But I think it's also reasonable that last year at this time, they looked at their options and they were like, hey, this coach is awesome. Assuming they were like, all right, hey, awesome coach, here's an opportunity. He said no. They did another one. He said no. They did another one. He said no. Then they said, you know what? We need to take a chill for a year. We're going to hire this guy who honestly, I think can be fair. I don't believe he had any other interviews and probably likely without this opportunity would not have been a head coach. We are going to put him in and allow him to fill this void if it's for 1 year or for 2 years until we can find our long-term answer, that to me sounds like a reasonable process. It's ugly, and the ugly history of the NFL's relationship with black coaches makes it look even worse. But that does not mean that this is not a reasonable process, and yesterday's decision to move on from David Culley is not a part of a better long-term vision for that organization.
Okay, well, we are going to be staying on this subject of moving on. And by the way, I just want to say I think that Culley was thrown into a very tumultuous situation, and he definitely made the best of it. So I can't really say anything bad about him. But yeah, talking about moving on, Carson Wentz in Indianapolis, will they possibly be moving on from him after one season, or will he be able to come back and redeem himself? That debate coming your way. Plus, will Michael Jordan be forgotten? One former NBA great think so. We'll tell you who. The Colts showed so much promise this season. They were basically a shoe into the playoffs. It's really just tragic. All they had to do was beat Jacksonville in the season finale, so their elimination has many pointing the finger at first-year Colt and quarterback Carson Wentz. And now neither head coach Frank Reich nor GM Chris Ballard will commit to his future in Indy after Sunday's meltdown.
Not acceptable, and we won't accept it. Expectations are higher. And especially where we're at in terms of, Frank and I have been together for 4 years and been building this. The expectations are high, and we accept that. And we won't, I won't sit up here and make excuses of why we got our beat in Jacksonville, because that's what happened. We got our beat. It happens, but we got our beat. And in such a, and it's magnified because of the moment. We made the decision to make a move on Carson. At the time of the decision, we felt good about it. And I still don't regret the decision at the time. I'm not going to, just sitting here today, just so y'all know, I won't make a comment on who's going to be here next year and who's not going to be here.
Okay, Neek, is Carson Wentz taking too much heat because of the elimination? It's a very sensitive subject. Handle it properly.
Gosh, that was painful to listen to. But I don't think he's taking too much of the blame. It kind of comes with the territory at quarterback. You're going to get a lot of credit. You're going to get a lot of blame. I think the difficult thing watching Carson Wentz and why, I both kind of feel sorry for him, have sympathy for him, but also feel like he kind of deserves this level of criticism, is in watching that game, which I'm sure both of you did. Those decisions were really unfortunate and awful. The back-to-back interceptions, him trying to throw the ball while being sacked, which ended up being like a fumble bowling attempt. That stuff is ugly. And when you're on a team that is not that dependent on you, is kind of a run-first team, you're not going to get many opportunities to make your plays. You have to make the best of them, or at least be neutral in those situations. And it seemed like time and time again, the decisions that he is making in those situations are debilitating. And of course, the team game, they all lost. You could be critical of Chris Ballard for deciding to bring Carson Wentz in, given his track record, what they knew he was responsible for. But in that situation, in a kind of winning your end situation in Jacksonville, you can't be the quarterback that turns the ball over 3 times and then be concerned and then have people say, nah, he don't deserve that much blame. Not 3, and 3 ugly turnovers. It's not like he got stripped sacked from behind because someone missed a block. He was in the grasp and decided that he was going to try to throw the ball away, and it was a fumble, and it's a recurring issue for Carson Wentz. The do too much all-star, Carson Wentz, keeps trying to do too much, and it debilitates his organization. So yeah, he's getting the right amount of blame right now.
Yeah, I'm so glad, Neek, we're having this conversation, because for so long I've been hoping that somebody would make it make sense, right? All the criticism that criticism that Carson Wentz receives, all the hate, all the flack, all the people hoping and wishing for his downfall. I've seen it firsthand, and I'm sure you have as well. Somebody make it make sense, right? What is going on? Why? But then you said something that actually turned the light bulb on in my head, which I'm so grateful and appreciative of. You said that he's not asked to do much. He's not asked, and that the truth is he's not, right? This team, the Indianapolis Colts, they rely on their defense and their running game. We saw Jonathan Taylor be in the MVP conversation. We saw what happened when he ran over 100 yards. They consistently won. We saw the defense behind Darius Leonard force so many turnovers, the 9th-ranked defense in the NFL when it comes to points. So you're not asked to do much at a quarterback. So when you play the way you play, because my point was going to be this. This was going to be my point before I heard you so eloquently explain yours. My point was, straight up, the defense played like trash in that game against Jacksonville. They were not getting any pressure on the quarterback. They were getting ran through. The offensive line, the running game was non-existent in that game against Jacksonville. So how are we going to put all this on Carson Wentz? And yes, I saw the bad interceptions, even the one that was through that was actually called as incomplete. I saw all that. So I'm like, but hey, it's a team game. But the crux of your argument, seemingly to me, lies on the pin of he's not asked to do so much. And if you're not asked to do so much, and in the little that you do, you don't take advantage of it or make the most of it, then yes, this blame that we're placing on you is adequately being placed. And so for me, you have changed my mind on one piece, on the blame piece. But what you still got to help make sense to me, bro, is why is there so much flack? Right? I still don't get it. There is so much, almost like a magnifying glass on just him. Like, what is it? This dude threw 27 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. That's like top 10 in touchdowns and bottom 2 or 3 starting quarterbacks intercept. What is it? I don't get it. That part still doesn't make sense to me. So if you could explain that so eloquently, Neek, or even Charlie,
I have one thing I can say to jump in here for, and I think it was Dan Orlovsky who said it earlier this week. The fact is the Colts brought in Carson Wentz to win. That was the whole reason they brought him over. Everyone's criticizing him, saying, he's not the same player he once was, but they believed in him. Frank Reich believed in him. They brought him in to win. And in the simplest of situations, against one of the worst teams in the league, he managed to get the team eliminated. Not on his own, but still, he had a definite hand in that.
Yeah, I think
that conversation, Neek and Charlie. Right, go ahead.
No, I'm gonna give it a shot. But I think that if you could at least be neutral in your opportunities, that'd be one thing. But to actually hurt your team in those opportunities is the tough part. But I think that you're right. Carson Wentz it feels like under an undue amount of scrutiny. And I think I could explain to you why. It's because so many people, and you mentioned Dan Orlovsky, he's one of them, loved him so much. And all of us who were watching it was like, yes, he had a good season, but he ain't that good. And then he continues to do it, and people continue to try to push out this narrative that he is really good. We just don't understand. We just don't know what we are seeing. And it has made Carson Wentz into somewhat of a target for people who are like, no, we knew this the whole time. We saw this is who he was. We saw that he was had a crazy amount of luck in that first season on 3rd and long situations. Like, we saw those things. And then to have someone or a bunch of people get on board, and then also it's magnified by the fact that he and Dak Prescott were always paired next to each other. And it felt so much like we're watching them and like, how do you see these guys as comparable players? And it made it so difficult. So it's not fair what has happened to Carson Wentz, because I do agree. But also you put on top of it the way he handled himself last year and forcing a trade. I don't have a problem with that. But when you play poorly and force a trade into a situation that feels like it's ideal, that has a great offensive line, has a great defense, a great running attack, and then you underperform like that, then brings more and more scrutiny. Whether it's fair or not, I don't know. But the way that you can put all this away is you go out there and cook. And he ain't been able to do that since his rookie year, it seems like. And that is the problem. And so I don't know if I've done a good job of explaining how Carson Wentz became this lightning rod, but I do see that. Like, he does get an undue amount of criticism. I remember on the game on Sunday, I tweeted out like a Carson Wentz joke after he fumbled. And then he threw back-to-back interceptions. And then I tweeted, all right, I'm starting to feel sorry for him. Boy, were my mentions on fire. People hated that I had sympathy for Carson Wentz. I was like, what did he do to you? Carson Wentz ain't do nothing to you. He just out here doing his best.
It'll be interesting to see what happens because I know a Super Bowl definitely is in the plans for the Colts at some point, but will Carson Wentz be leading the team to that? We will just have to wait and see. But let's keep it moving. Still a whole lot more on the way here on this very show. A former NBA great says Michael Jordan will be forgotten in the GOAT conversation, and we are going to debate this hot take coming up. Plus, it's been the Bucks blew out the Warriors last night behind a 30, 12, and 11 triple-double from Giannis, who only played for 30 minutes. So, Neek, should Giannis be in the lead for MVP right now?
I mean, to be fair, yes. Statistically, he's amongst the top in all the important categories. The team is still really good. I think they're fourth now in the East, third or fourth in the East, somewhere around there. Also, you find the Nets, but it feels like it's a matter of choice, given that all these players are really good. I lean more in the Durant direction because it feels to me like he's done more with less. He kind of protects the rim in the same way Giannis does, not nearly as efficiently, but he does a good job there and is also carrying a bigger load of the offense. So I think last night's win over the Warriors is an impressive one, but Draymond wasn't there. Clay is trying to come back. I lean Durant.
Okay, well, John Morant also in that conversation, depending who you ask. He did not, though, have his best game yesterday, going 0 for 7 from behind the arc, but the Grizzlies still got the dub against the Timberwolves. So where do you put the Grizzlies among the best teams in the league?
Yeah, I think last night was a great indication of why the Grizzlies should be among the top teams in the league, because they aren't just Ja Morant. He's incredible passing. It's one thing I didn't know about him until, frankly, this season, how great a passer he is. But the rest of the team really steps up. Even with Adams out, they don't have a ton of big names, so I think that might be the reason why we don't think of them that highly. But this 11-game run, they beat some good teams, including the Timberwolves last night. So I like them, but come playoff time, it may be a different story. But we should be talking about them like commiserate with where they are in the standings right now.
Well, here's something a lot of people are talking about, because in a recent appearance on the Armchair Expert podcast, Dwayne Wade had jarring comments saying, quote, "The game continues to keep moving forward, and so we're going to continue to see things we've never seen before. And the eyes are going to get younger and younger. We're not going to be the ones having a conversation about the GOATs. Now it's going to be the younger generation, and they're going to forget about Jordan like we forgot about Kareem." Oh, Dominique, do you agree with Wade's comments?
I mean, I think it makes sense. He's probably right about most people, but he's not right about Jordan, in my view. Jordan's a little different because he brought up Kareem, but he didn't say Bill Russell. We haven't forgotten about Bill Russell because Bill Russell has stayed around. And Jordan seems like one of those players that is going to stay around. Like, he still owns a team. I mean, and all these young eyes, they watched that 10-part series last year, The Last Dance. Those young eyes got to look at that. Those young eyes still buy Jordan shoes. So I think that Jordan might be one of those guys like Bill Russell and not like Kareem, that his greatness will stand the test of time and the young eyes will respect and appreciate him as much as they ever did.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. With all these kids wearing his shoes, there's no way he is going to be forgotten. Okay, Neek, thank you so much. Still ahead, who will win the Frozen showdown between the Bills and the Pats? We have some mixed predictions on the way. And plus, should Tom Brady and the Bucks be on upset alert? Find out which one of our debaters thinks the Eagles could soar past Tampa Bay. More First Take after the break. Bills tomorrow.
Are you ready or not?
Patriots at home in division. That's something that you dreamed about. It's going to be a great challenge.
The Bills are back on top in the AFC East. Are you ready or not?
You know they're a good team and we got a lot to get ready for.
They know us, we know them. It's going to be a 12-round slugfest.
We gon' sit at the top. Give it all we got. Are you ready or not? Are you ready or not?
Oh, it is going to be cold for that game. A high of 12 tomorrow with winds at 13 miles per hour. These two teams know a thing or two about harsh conditions, but who will outperform in them to advance? The Bills and Patriots split their regular season meetings, and now it's time for round numero tres. Okay, Dominique is still here, and so is Ryan Clark, and also a guy who knows a thing or two about winning with the Patriots, I would say, right? Rob Ninkovich. So, Rob, let's start with you. Who do you think is going to win this game? Is it the Patriots or the Bills?
I'm going with the Patriots, and I know RC and Dominique are going to say, oh, Rob's going to go with the Patriots because he's a Patriot. Well, that's not true. Listen,
but it's a good reason.
It's a good reason. Yeah,
it's loyalty.
Reason.
We like loyal people around here.
Another reason why I'm going with that is because the Patriots beat the Bills in Buffalo when the weather was poor and it was windy and it was a little chilly. And now there's, you got Josh Allen going on record saying, yeah, we don't know the reason why we're not that great in cold weather and my feet go numb. Like, there's just
I have circulation issues.
And let's not ask Bart Scott about, how to fix those issues. So,
or should we?
Yeah, exactly. So this is my thing. when the game is going to be freezing cold. We know that, right? It's a mentally tough thing. It's a running game. It's going to be who's the tougher team when it comes to just handing the football off. And we've seen this before. The Patriots didn't even have to throw a pass in the last matchup when it was windy in Buffalo. So it's the playoffs. What does Bill do in the playoffs? He game plans. He does the best game planning in the history of coaching that we have seen throughout the coaching in general. He's the best at ever doing it. So the Patriots are going to have a great game plan for the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo, and it's going to be cold. So put your jacket on, get by the little heaters, and I don't want to see guys huddled around the heaters and doing this with their hands. It's a football game. Go out there. It's cold. Okay, go make plays. Go fly around. Keep yourself warm. Go run around. So the Patriots win.
Okay.
Nico,
yes.
Nico, everybody hates playing in the cold, right? Like I played for Pittsburgh, and I never played anywhere warm, and there was never a day where I woke up and was like, I am so glad that these freezing temperatures that we get to play in. So it don't matter if you play for Buffalo, if you play for New England, all of those people hate cold. We're talking about Josh Allen having no circulation in his toes. Well, Mac Jones is going to wear a scuba suit. Like that's what the New England Patriots quarterbacks do. He's going to be in a scuba, so he's going to be Scuba Steve. And so when we think about this game, you can't think back to that Monday night game where the New England Patriots were able to win with only throwing 3 passes. That was also a wintry hell. The way the winds were blowing, they were sideline to sideline. Josh Allen, he also couldn't throw the football as accurately as he normally does in that type of weather. But the New England Patriots didn't even try. And also look at the New England Patriots throughout the last month of the season. You lose to the Indianapolis Colts. You lose to the Buffalo Bills. You lose to the Miami Dolphins. Mac Jones is in the bottom of the league in QBR since it's become the winter. The New England Patriots have changed as a team. The New England Patriots aren't playing the dominant defense that we saw them play early on in the season. They aren't dominating teams physically up front the way they did throughout the early part of the season or throughout their 6-game run where they were undefeated. And so there's so many things that are different about both of these teams, but none more different than this. Josh Allen is a superstar. We all know that. Since the second half of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, he's played that way. He's used his legs, he's used his arms, and Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator, has also called plays and schemed in that fashion to make him the focal point of what they do, but also allowing Singletary to run, allowing Zach Moss to run. This is the better football team. This is the football team whose time it is, at least right now, in the AFC East, and I don't care what the weather is, Scuba Steve, Bill Belichick, Mac Jones, whoever you walk out there, the Buffalo Bills are going to take the win.
Yeah, the Bills are going to pull this one out, in part because the biggest strength that you would think you have is that Bill Belichick mind against Josh Allen, because they're going to have to create turnovers. They're going to have to create a short field in order to win this game. They're going to have to give Mac Jones. Yeah, you would think so, but they haven't been against Mac Jones. Mac Jones got 8 touchdowns and 1 interception in their past 4 times playing against each other.
You said one time Mac Jones or Josh Allen?
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. Josh Allen. Josh Allen got 8 touchdowns and 1 interception in the last 4 times that they played each other. So they haven't been able to create those turnovers. And the one time that the Pats were able to beat the Bills was in that windstorm, which was not a modern football game. Like, that is going to happen once every 5 years. It's not going to happen again. That was 1950s football. Bill Belichick is going to win a lot of 1950s football games, and no matter how cold it is, we're not going to have one of those this weekend. And the Bills, frankly, because that game was in prime time that night, or that win game, a lot of us started to think and talk about it like, man, Bill Belichick sure does own these guys. Actually, in recent history, the Bills have owned the Patriots, and I don't see this changing, especially since if your big advantage is that it's cold outside and your quarterback is from down south and he don't like the cold either. Like, it don't seem like he is Tom Brady. He's not looking for the tough game. He's not looking for the snow game. Tom is gone. Your quarterback is a sun boy, and he don't like it neither.
How about this? Let's stop living in the past and talking about the Colts beat the Patriots. Let's stop talking about the past. Let's talk about the future. This is the playoffs.
I like to live in the past in that regard.
I don't like living in the past. This is the NFL. Not for long if you don't play well. So I think the Patriots are going to play better. And guess what? This is another thing that it's hidden. Nobody talks about it. In cold games, the number one thing affected is the kicking game. The better punter is with the Patriots. The field position battle. All those things come into
Can we go
effect.
to the
So
next topic?
if the
Hey, you know what,
Patriots
Nico?
have better field
We done
position
with this one.
than Buffalo,
We done with this
and they
one.
have the better
when you
kicker
start,
Nico,
when you
in Buffalo,
start, when
I'm
you
not hearing
start,
it. I'm
when
not
you
hearing
start, when you start grabbing for the punter as your advantage.
Hey, that's football.
No, you are desperate. You are desperate.
Listen, it is
Three-phase
Well, our
game,
punter's
three
better.
phases. There's a three-phase game.
Also, I think, Dominique, I feel like you're underestimating the weather here. I mean, it's not just going to be cold, it's going to be freezing. Okay?
Yeah,
and Josh Allen, historically speaking, has thrown more interceptions than touchdowns when the kickoff weather is below freezing, which it certainly will be. So,
That's probably,
Bill
that's
Belichick,
probably
you know,
true
is going to
for most
game plan for
quarterbacks.
this.
We don't know.
And it could come down to the
game
kicker.
plan for it. Well, go ahead, RC. My bad.
No, I think the one thing we have to remember about Josh Allen when we talk about his QBR in cold games, or you talk about interception to touchdown ratio, it's also because in a game like we saw in primetime where Mac Jones only threw the ball 3 times, Josh Allen threw it 20 times. It's because the team that he plays for understands that those
should be on upset alert.
I mean, I like the way you guys worded that. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm not betting on the Eagles, but I do think that the way...
There's a
They
chance.
try to get me, RC. They try to get me. I do think that the way that the Eagles play could present a problem for everyone, frankly. It's similar to how the 49ers play in that they have an aggressive rushing attack. They have an outstanding offensive line, and that's going to shorten the game. And given the fact that the Bucs have a lot of injuries on defense across their defensive line and in their linebackers, and frankly in their secondary, a lot of injuries all over that team, I think they could be susceptible to those type of issues. And if the Eagles are able to put together a couple early scoring drives, forcing the Bucs to become more one-dimensional, I think that they can shorten the game, the number of possessions, and be in position to pull off an upset. But I do have a hard time thinking about Tom Brady versus Jalen Hurts with the game on the line at the end. And I hope Jalen Hurts don't take this as no disrespect. He's had a good season. This is not meant as disrespect. But frankly, there ain't but maybe 2 quarterbacks in the league that I would say against Tom Brady in the clutch I feel comfortable about. So if their game plan, they run it to a T, they don't make any mistakes, they're able to shorten the game, I do think the Eagles are going to be able to give the Bucs a better game than we anticipate.
I think the game could be tough, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are not on upset alert. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers were rolling last year coming into the playoffs. It's a little different than what they were, but they're talking about getting Levante David back. I think having Leonard Fournette back is huge, what he could do both the pass game and the run game. And I do love the rushing attack of the Philadelphia Eagles. Once Nick Sirianni finally realized who they were, that's kind of when Jalen Hurts and this offense were able to take off a little bit because they had an identity. And that can shorten the game. But when you get into the playoffs, it's about stars. It's about players being able to go out and make plays. It's about the Rob Gronkowskis. It's about the Tom Bradys, the Leonard Fournettes, the Mike Evans. And you think about what this defense did last year, what they turned into. Shaq Barrett is coming off of COVID protocols. Levante David is coming off of the IR. These were dudes that were sideline to sidelines and absolute menaces. This is also when we saw Devin White step up last year and become one of the better linebackers in the NFL. And I think we'll start to see some of that championship pedigree come out of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I know the Philadelphia Eagles are a team that has fought and scraped and and gotten their way into the playoffs. They're also 0-6 against teams that'll be playing going forward in January. They're not a team that has beaten good football teams. They're not a team that has pressured the tops in the NFL. And I think we'll see some of that stuff come out this weekend. Can the Philadelphia Eagles be better in the future? Absolutely. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are not on upset alert. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are working on things they need to work on this week for the next week of the playoffs, which they plan to be playing in.
So basically it's just another day of practice, you're saying?
Don't you do that, Charlie. Charlie, don't you do that.
You said it. I just clarified.
Charlie, do not clarify it. You put words into my mouth. That is not what I said. What I said was they are going to be working on some things this week that they know they'll need next week because they will win the game and be playing. It's not practice. It's not a bye week. This is important.
All right.
You my dog, RC. I'm always on your side. However, working on things this week for next week sound like sound like practice to me.
Thank you.
To me, that's not playing game. They out here, they testing
No,
stuff?
dog.
They experimenting?
Dog, this is not. No, man, this is not rehearsal. It is not a rehearsal. It's a real game. I'm just saying that they're going to win, right? And so the things that they're going to do this week, they're going to take to the next week. And the things that Philadelphia do this week, they're just going to take the next year. God,
I agree with you. I agree with you in the fact that this feels like a bowl game for the Eagles. Like, this is the reward. You got to the game.
You might have just given Jalen Hurts a whole lot of ammo. Jalen, if you're listening, maybe you got a little more motivation to go in there and make some things happen in Tampa Bay.
That is, I hate to burst your bubble, Charlie, but that ain't gonna help. RC talking trash on First Take. That is not gonna block Vita Vea. That is not going to sack Tom Brady.
No, it's not.
That ain't going to do it.
But the last time they played this team, they got taken to the woodshed. See, it's one thing. It's one thing if you have to guess how you match up against someone, right? Like if you're the big underdog, you know, if you're Rocky fighting Drago and you go in there and you're like, you know what? I don't really know how I'll fare. I saw Apollo go out there and do it, and obviously he didn't fare very well, but maybe I can do better. Right? And so when you watch these other teams play the Kansas City Chiefs, you can look at the film and say, you know what? Patrick wasn't great this game. The defense hasn't played as good the last 2 games as they did on the 7-8 game winning streak. You can say all those things if you hadn't actually been on the field with them. If they hadn't actually punched you in your face and you decided to not punch back. And so now that you've had that experience and you realize there was no Travis Kelce and you realize you couldn't tackle Byron Pringle and you couldn't tackle Derek Gore and you couldn't move the football offensively, you got to kind of say, okay, when I watch that film, I don't feel like it's a once-we win. When I watch that film, I don't feel like that's actually a bandwagon people will want to jump on. And don't get me wrong, I picked the Pittsburgh Steelers to be in this position. At least I picked them to win the last 2 games against the Browns and the Ravens. And obviously some other people did some stupid stuff.
Wait, did you? I vaguely remember on Monday you saying that you didn't believe they were going to be in this position. I think that you're running this back a little bit, aren't you?
No, I said I picked them that they would win the games they were supposed to win. I didn't think the Colts would go down there and trick it off against the Jaguars.
On you today, man.
No,
Charlie
so like
on you today.
Yeah, it was Charlie killing me, right, bro? What type of friend? But what I'm saying is the Pittsburgh Steelers are here because they accomplished what they did, what they had to do. But the Pittsburgh Steelers are not a playoff team. The Pittsburgh Steelers aren't a team that can move forward. The Pittsburgh Steelers aren't a team that when you put the film on, you watch every phase of football and go, you know what? This is a winner. Mike Tomlin, Hall of Fame coach. Ben Roethlisberger, Hall of Fame quarterback. Will this team into the playoffs because of a defense that kept them in games? But this is where the buck stops. I'm still going to have my helmet behind me. I'm still going to be proud about where I got to play. But we're going to all be watching the next week of the playoffs together.
Yeah, this is going to be the last spin of the year for your terrible towel. It's going to be this weekend, but I do think that in your Rocky IV reference, I do think that they are Apollo Creed. The problem is they are not Rocky. They think they are Apollo Creed. They are Carl Weathers, and they was Apollo Creed early in the movie, and they think they're going to come back and be Action Jackson.
Living in America, baby.
You cannot be, just because you look like Carl Weathers, don't mean you can be Action Jackson. It's going to be a problem out there, and that bandwagon got a rickety wheel on it, and I ain't hopping on it. So I don't want to be too disrespectful. They're a football team, a well-coached team.
That was very disrespectful. That was very disrespectful.
Okay, well, here's a chance for you to redeem yourself from being disrespectful. I mean, you say there's no way they're going to get a victory, but will they at least keep it close, Nick?
I mean, I think that they're 12-point underdogs. I think that sounds like about right. Yeah, they might get it down to 10 or something like that. You know why? Because this is Trick'em week. This is the week where you go all the way to the back of the playbook, you blow the dust off that thing, and you run flea flickers, end rounds, double passes, triple passes. They're going to steal some points, and they're a good defense. They'll create a turnover here or there. They'll keep it close, but they're not going to win.
I think defensively, the Pittsburgh Steelers play much better this game than they did last game. I truly do. I believe that it's going to be a much more competitive football game. It's going to be a closer football game than what we saw a few weeks ago. I just think in the end, the Kansas City Chiefs are the better football team. The Kansas City Chiefs have the better players. The Kansas City Chiefs have the bigger stars. It's going to take the Cam Haywoods on defense. It's going to take the TJ Watts, the Minka Fitzpatricks, and all of those guys to even play above what they've played the entire season to win this football game. And in the end, the Kansas City Chiefs are just too much. And, you know, me and Dom, we like to have fun. We like to say crazy things and we joke. But the truth is this. When you don't have the people in the NFL, you don't win. Is Mike Tomlin an excellent coach? Yes. Should Mike Tomlin be the last black coach standing? No, but the reason he is because he's never had a losing season. Yes. No matter if it was Duck Hodges, no matter if it was Charlie Batch, he found ways to win football games. This is just one they're not good enough to win.
If that is not a microcosm for America, I don't know what is. That you got to be among the greatest coaches ever to be the last black man standing as a coach in the NFL. But I do think that, to be fair to them, they can't play as bad on defense as they did last time. So you saying they're gonna play better, like that's not saying that much. But when I imagine this game, there are a few ways that it can go, and none of them. There's one way that I think that the Steelers could win. They can't win a shootout. I think if the game is close at the end, I have more confidence in Patrick Mahomes, frankly, than this version of Ben Roethlisberger at the end. It's going to have to be a turnover fest, and the Chiefs are going to have to beat themselves, which I don't really see happening.
Yeah, more than likely not. So I think it's safe to say we can all assume this will more than likely be Ben's last game. So if that is the case, he will be only one of 3 quarterbacks since 1950 to play in the playoffs in both their rookie and their final season in the league. There's only 2 others who have done that, Dan Marino and someone else I don't like to speak of too often, which is Andrew Luck. Man, what a waste of talent there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know. Okay, you know what? Let's just keep it moving, guys. I don't need to get in my feels right now.
He looks so happy.
The Cowboys are going to take on the 49ers on Sunday, and while it was once trendy to pick the 49ers in the upset, it now seems to be becoming mainstream. Although the Cowboys have had a lot of success in the regular season, a lot of people point to the team's lack of identity from week to week as a reason to not trust the star. This week, Jerry Jones said his expectations are Super Bowl or bust, and now with all eyes on Dallas, Dak is talking about the pressure.
I don't know necessarily why people have labeled the word pressure as such a bad thing, honestly. I think it creates high expectations and high standards, and it usually creates high results. So for me, it's just about being who I am, staying true to that, knowing who I am, preparing the same way that I have and that I do, trusting the people around me, trusting the play callers in my preparation, and then just going out there and playing the game that I love without any hesitation.
Okay, RC, the Cowboys are still favored to win the game, but how worried should they be?
I mean, they should absolutely be worried. The Dallas Cowboys aren't the same team we watched play the first 6-7 weeks of the season, and they're playing the most consistently true to themselves team in football. When Kyle Shanahan walks into the stadium, he knows who the hell the San Francisco 49ers are, and he never lets you get him out of character. He never panics. He's not the guy that gets punched in the face and he starts windmill fighting. He's not that person. He's a guy that gets punched in the face and he wipes it off. He puts his hands back up, and then he starts to swing. And we saw that when they were down 17-0 to the Los Angeles Rams. This didn't turn into the Houston Oilers run and shoot with Warren Moon. No, they continued to run the football. They continued to get the ball in Deebo Samuel's hands. They continued to run the boot game. And then when Jimmy Garoppolo had to make some plays at the end, he was able to do that, but it was still the usual suspects he was using. And that's what you're going to see from this team this week. You're going to see physicality up front on both sides of the football field. You're going to see a defense that tries to prevent the big play and the offense that wants to bludgeon you, and also they have Trent Williams back. And with all of those things being said, their ceiling is not where the Dallas Cowboys ceiling is. They don't have the Dak Prescotts, right? They don't have the Ezekiel Elliott's, the Amari Coopers, the CeeDee Lambs. On defense, they don't have the DeMarcus Lawrence. Obviously, they have Bosa, you have Armstead, but they don't have Lawrence and Gregory. They don't have the Michael Parsons. They don't have the Trayvon Diggs. They're not turning the football over at the rate the Dallas Cowboys have been. If the Dallas Cowboys play to the ceiling of their talent, they're the scariest team to play in the conference. But the reason that we are doubting them, the reason that people think this game is going to be close is because they often have an identity crisis. We don't know which team is going to show up. We don't see that consistency, but we see that with San Francisco. I still have Dallas winning this game.
In the 49ers, the way that they play offensively, it eliminates to some degree the strength of the Dallas Cowboys is their pass rush. It's like a straight drop back pass rush. And the 49ers are not going to give you too many opportunities to do that unless you're down by a lot. And when you started, RC, you were talking about throwing punches and how you react. And that made me think about something that like means a lot to you. You're an MMA guy with the DC and RC podcast. And I was thinking about the 49ers.
Thanks for the shout out.
Yeah, nice plug.
Oh, yeah. Download, rate, review, all that stuff. But the 49ers, they are a jiu-jitsu fighter. That's what they are. Like, they are out there. And they are waiting for you to make a decision. Yeah, they are not going to be pretty necessarily. They're waiting for you to slip up and leave a hole so that you think you are an advantage. And next thing you know, you on your back and he got you in a rear naked choke. And that is what they're going to try to do to players like Micah Parsons. Because Micah Parsons is fast and aggressive, and he's playing in his first playoff game. And he is more than likely, and this is not a criticism of him, more than likely he is going to overplay things. And that is what the 49ers are counting on. So I think the key to the key to the Cowboys winning this game, honestly, is their offense playing well early. Because I'm not sure that there is an answer defensively for the 49ers if the 49ers are playing well. I'm not sure that the Cowboys, as talented as their defense is, their defense is built to stop modern NFL offenses. And the 49ers, they ain't really that. They're giving you something a little different. So if the Cowboys can get out to an early lead and force Jimmy G to have to work from a pocket and allow their three incredible pass rushers to get after him and give Trayvon Diggs opportunity after opportunity to get an interception, that is where they're most comfortable. Otherwise, they might end up in a triangle choke, and it's going to be a short, ugly fight.
Dominique, when are you going to go on the podcast? I feel like you'd be the perfect guest, right?
I know, right? This is too good.
They scare me. Them MMA guys scare me. I don't know. They crazier than us football guys. We got a little bit of sense. They don't got none.
Do you a little bit of sense? You think you have a little bit of sense? I don't know about that. I'm just joking. But, hey, Ryan, you know, we talk about the identity crisis of the Cowboys. Which team are you going to get? So which team do you feel most confident in the NFC advancing in the playoffs?
Well, I think are you asking between the 49ers and the Cowboys,
well,
Charlie?
no, not necessarily. I mean, if the Cowboys can play to the level we expect them to, I mean, they could be an option for you. Or do you take somebody else?
Yeah, it's hard to go against the Green Bay Packers right now, given their resume.
No, not the Packers. Not the Packers. Come on, someone else.
Come on, Charlie.
That's too easy. That's too easy.
Come on in with this sloppy question. You will be amending your question later.
I did amend my question. You're right. I did amend my question.
Now, you know, like you look at these. So if you look at the teams, and you're talking about teams playing to their top level, right? Playing at their elite, then you'd have to say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers if you can't pick the Green Bay Packers. When you look at their quarterback, right? You look at Tom Brady and the things that he's done throughout his career, but also his numbers this year are ridiculous. We've spent so much time talking about Aaron Rodgers, whether it was the saga during the summer or the great play during the season with Devontae Adams, that we've overlooked that Tom Brady basically leads in every major category at the quarterback position. And now you get playoff Lenny back. Obviously, Rob Gronkowski has played his best ball down the end of the stretch of this season. Levante David returns. Shaq Barrett returns. And you think about what this team looked like as they hit their stretch run last year. If they could get in that same position, and you got a dude that's been to a decade's worth of Super Bowls, you have to believe that they can find ways to win. And the way that the NFC is set up right now, no team truly should be scared of anyone, right? The Dallas Cowboys shouldn't walk into the stadium scared of the 49ers because they should feel like they can beat them. But the 49ers should feel the same way. Same with the Cardinals, the Rams, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The only team you look at in the NFC and you say, you know what? If they got to the Super Bowl, I'd be extremely surprised, is the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, I think you're right about Brady. I changed my non-existent my non-existent MVP vote from Aaron Rodgers to Tom Brady because I believe that Aaron Rodgers' saga drew our attention to him, and his amazing passes got him a lot of cred. But if you watch what happened this season. It seems like what Tom Brady has done is slightly more impactful and impressive on his team. But I think I would go a different direction because I'm going with the Cowboys. Because in the playoffs, there are kind of, it seems like in recent history, there are two things that matter most in the playoffs: getting pressure with 4 and elite quarterback play. I feel like the Bucs have both sometimes, but their two best pass rushers are just coming back, and we're not sure how good they are. And their offense is currently trying to remake itself. So Tom Brady, I'm pretty sure he's going to show up and be the Brady that we know and respect, even though last year in the playoffs, he wasn't as good as we expect him to be. So I don't know. I think the question is, what Dak shows up for the Cowboys, because I think their pass rush will be there. And the question for the Bucs is, can this defense get back to